Monday morning meeting. The leader made a slip of the tongue. Everyone else went silent, and I was the only one laughing. The leader's face turned black. Liangxi, repeat what you just said 10 times. I arrive home in the evening. The leader kneels and I stand. I put my hands on my hips and said, Zhou Su, copy the wife rules 10 times. Lead. 1. Zhou Su and I have a business marriage. His family is rich, and my family is rich too. In order to make each other richer, we got together. It has been 3 months since I got married, and I am starting to feel a little distressed. I think I like last week's talk. This should be a very normal thing. After all, his face is known as the top killer weapon of, you will surrender if you look at it for one more moment. It took me 3 months to surrender, which can be considered as a man of steel. This is something to be thankful for. After all, he has become my husband. A marriage with affection will always last longer than one without affection. But he and I have a prenuptial agreement. He and I actually have a lot of prenuptial agreements. After all, our families are both very complicated. And there are so many documents on the division of property that I can't even count them all. I signed so many documents that my hands got tired. The prenuptial agreement that I am concerned about was drawn up between him and me privately. Agreement on married life. Zhou Su's requirement for me is very simple, to be a qualified wife. I only have 3 requirements for him. 1. Keep your private life simple. 2. Live a healthy lifestyle. 3. Only talk about money, not feelings. When I signed the agreement, I firmly believed that even if I got married, I could still live a beautiful and free-spirited pseudo-single life. Unexpectedly, I was the one who crossed the line and started talking about feelings first. What a slap in the face. Being obsessed with looks is harmful. After realizing my feelings for Zhou Su, I felt awkward getting along with him. I can't help but want to see him. Before, when we were at home together, we each did our own things and got along well with each other. He looked through his company accounts, and I studied my beauty makeup. But I'm a little restless now. Knowing he is in the study, I can't help but offer him a plate of fruit or a cup of coffee. Zhou Su took off his gold-rimmed glasses, pressed his temples, and looked up at me. You need help from me? No. I denied immediately. But then I thought of something and said timidly, yes. Go ahead. He leaned back in his chair, stretched out his hand, picked up the cup of coffee I handed him, took a sip, and frowned slightly. Not to your taste? I asked. Too sweet, he said. I wonder, there wasn't much sugar in it. Under his urging gaze, I started to get down to business. I want to work in your company, just find a position for me. This is the advice my bestie gave me. My comfortable life as a rich wife, where I spend my days shopping and drinking tea, cannot attract a workaholic husband like Zhou Su. If I want Zhou Su to fall in love with me completely, I have to hang around under his nose all day long. You have to wander around not only at night, but also during the day. I knew what he was talking about, so I took the initiative to offer. Can I be your secretary? Zhou Su didn't know what he was thinking about. He choked and said bluntly, secretary is not good enough. I pouted unconsciously. Do odd jobs. He gave in a little. Come to my secretary's office and do odd jobs. I'll just do odd jobs. At least I've managed to get into his secretarial office. 2. Soon, I became an employee in the general manager's office of the Rising Sun Group. I touched the work badge in my hand, looked at the 3 words general manager's office below my name, and couldn't help but grin. This place is only separated by a wall from Zhou Su's office, which makes it very convenient for me to hang around under his nose. I didn't feel happy for long before I realized the problem. No outsiders are allowed to enter the general manager's office without being summoned, and Zhou Su himself rarely condescends to hang around our general manager's office. If he wants to summon someone, he just makes an internal call. The whole day, I didn't even see the shadow of Zhou Su. If I continue like this, when will I be able to find a workaholic husband? I complained to my bestie in frustration, and she advised me to think positively. Other people answer the phone because they have something important to do. You haven't even touched a corner of a file all day, so you expect Zhou Su to call you to flirt with you. The word flirting makes me shy. I said angrily, If he dares to hit me, I will dare to adjust. I didn't expect that Zhou would come to me immediately after I said this. The internal line rang, and his cold and textured voice sounded on the other end of the line. Send in a cup of coffee. With a click, the phone was hung up. There is simply no time for flirting. While gritting my teeth and cursing this bastard for daring to do this to me, I obediently got up and went to the tea room to make coffee for him. I knocked on the door and entered the room, saying respectfully, "General Manager, the coffee is here. Leave it here." He raised his chin. I walked forward slowly and couldn't help but glance at Zhou. He sat behind a large desk with a wall-to-wall bookcase behind him. He lowered his head slightly, holding a gold-rimmed fountain pen between his fingertips, sketching something on paper. He was still wearing his neatly ironed three-piece suit, and the navy blue tulle tie around his neck was the one I tied for him when he went out in the morning. I put the coffee next to him. He pushed the chair back and looked at me. "Are you used to it?" "It's a bit boring," I said honestly. "I thought you would like a less busy job." I looked up at him and said, "It's better to be busy." I thought to myself, it would be best if the kind of busyness could happen right under your nose all the time. Understood. He nodded. The workload has increased significantly. Specifically, all the work of delivering documents and coffee is now my responsibility, making me a true jack of all trades. Of course, this also greatly made it easier for me to show my presence in front of Zhou, and I was very satisfied. While making my presence felt, I also successfully won the hearts of my colleagues with various small gifts and afternoon tea. They can finally include me in their gossip. Afternoon break. I was stirring the black tea in my cup when someone teased me. "Liangxi, tell me, what was it like when you first saw Mr. Zhou's face?" I smiled faintly and said, "It's quite touching." This is the truth. The first time I met Zhou was at my father's birthday party. He arrived late, holding a suit jacket in his hand, wearing only a shirt and vest, with a thin silver chain flashing on his collar, and his hair slightly messy. A sudden gust of wind blew away his hair, revealing the delicate curve of his brow bone. When he raised his eyes, the brilliance between his eyebrows seemed to overshadow the entire banquet. That face was the magic weapon that calmed the place. No one forgot that he was late. He was left greeting everyone with dignity and grace. "Don't be tempted." A colleague put his arm around my shoulders in a familiar manner. "Mr. Zhou has a wife." Ah, I wondered at the right time. Although my marriage to Zhou was public, everyone only knew that Zhou married the daughter of Shijia Group, and they didn't know that the daughter was me. This is thanks to the protection of my parents, who want me to grow up healthy and happy. In the 3 months since we got married, Mr. Zhou has never worked overtime. He used to be a well-known workaholic, and he would have liked to split the day into 48 hours. I blinked and wanted to argue that although Zhou was not working overtime at the company, he was working overtime at home. "Isn't this a typical case of preferring beauty over power?" A colleague agreed. Another colleague raised an eyebrow at me gossipingly. "We all think that Mr. Zhou must love his wife terribly. Otherwise, why would a workaholic like him be willing to leave work on time every day? It must be to go home to be with his wife." I'm really overthinking it. The truth is that his wife punches in on time every day and goes to the company to seduce her husband. 3. In order to hook up with Zhou faster, I put a lot of thought into my dressing. The professional attire sent by major brands gradually occupied a corner of my cloakroom. I changed an outfit every day and showed it off in front of Zhou in different ways. But for some reason, this man didn't show any signs of being interested. Still that poker face and still that workaholic look. Not even a glance. I was really depressed, so I asked my best friend to go out for a drink. When my best friend saw me dressed like that, she was amazed and said, "I'm not saying this, Zhou is a very determined person. A beautiful woman like you is always under his nose. And he's not tempted?" "He's not tempted." She cursed. "Is he incompetent?" If it were me, I would have just pounced on him. I was amused by her, so I gave her a flirtatious look and said seriously, "Do you think he likes men?" "I haven't heard of it," Yanko analyzed. "If she really likes men, there should be some rumors in the circle, right?" I agreed and pouted in frustration. My best friend put her arm around my shoulders and consoled me. Why don't we change our strategy? If you really like her, then go after her. Who cares who goes after whom? As long as we're together in the end, that's fine. No, I refused righteously. As the saying goes, no one takes off the clothes on the bed by themselves, and no one in Liangxi chases after a man by themselves. Yanke laughed and said, "What a perverted logic you have." I laughed too. It's just about saving face. It was clearly written in black and white before the marriage that we would talk about money and not feelings. It's only been 3 months, and I'm already chasing after him. How can I get along in front of Zhou Su in the future? So it must be me that Zhou Su is chasing. Yanke shook the wine glass in his hand and suggested, "How about we pretend to be drunk and test it out?" I understood immediately and nodded in agreement. Okay. I propped up my chin and watched Yanke call Zhou Su. The gist of the call was that I was drunk and acting crazy. So he asked Zhou Su to come to the Jui bar to pick me up. There was a "okay" from the other end of the phone. While waiting for Zhou to talk, I began to worry. Will he send a driver to pick me up? Yanke said, "Then let's not have this man." I felt that it made sense and nodded vigorously. While waiting for Zhou to finish his conversation, I put on some makeup. My cheeks were rosy and my eyes were moist. I looked no different from being drunk. The moment Yanke's phone rang, I quickly collapsed on the table and saw Zhou Su appear at the door of the Jui bar. He had probably just taken a shower, so his hair was a little wet, and he was no longer wearing a formal suit, but simple and comfortable home clothes. He strode towards us, holding a mobile phone with slippers on his feet. I pretended to be drunk with blurry eyes. Zhou Su grabbed me and held me in his arms, asking Yanke, "Why is she so drunk? You must be worried about something." I heard Yanke answered. Her serious and compassionate tone almost made me laugh out loud, but I quickly held it back and put my hands around Zhou Su's neck, breathing softly. Zhou Su's hands around my waist suddenly tightened, and a layer of small bumps appeared on my neck where my breath brushed. I heard him clear his throat and ask Yanke, "Are you okay? Do I need you to be taken back first?" Yanke shook her head. "No, my boyfriend will pick me up later." "Then let's wait until he arrives before we leave," Zhou Su said. Yanke's boyfriend arrived soon. Zhou Su asked the bar for a blanket, wrapped it around my waist, bent down, and carried me out of the bar like a princess. I buried my head in his neck, remembered the strategy of pretending to be drunk, and acted coquettishly towards him. "Put me down, I want to drink more." He was stunned for a moment, as if his body was stiff, and he clenched his jaw and spat out 2 words. "No." His tone was cold. I was a little angry. What? I was acting like a spoiled child, but he still had this attitude. He didn't like me at all. I made a fuss about wanting to get down, but he wouldn't let me go. He strode forward and carried me away from the bar. We kept making a fuss, and when we reached the door he was half dragging me, half carrying me. Maybe he was also annoyed, and he pushed me against the wall, pinched my waist with his hands, breathed fiercely, and stared at me with sharp eyes. "I don't want to look at him, turn your head away." He turned his chin towards me and said seriously, "From now on, you are not allowed to drink outside." I said nothing, just looked at him. Her eyes swept over his delicate eyebrows, high nose bridge, and lips that looked kissable at first glance. How come it's so popular? Suddenly, his Adam's apple slid down slightly, and his eyes gradually became dangerous. I suddenly understood. This man is still capable. 4. After that night at the bar, Zhou Su and I still had no progress. But I am full of confidence. After all, the words "conquerable" are now written on this man's forehead. But before I could conquer next week's story, he conquered the colleagues in the general manager's office first. Zhou Su has 2 male special assistants who are his first choices for business trips abroad. One is married and the other is unmarried. For some reason, the unmarried one fell in love with me. I am very sure that I didn't do anything, and I haven't even spoken a word to him. But he has been trying to get close to me recently, giving me some exquisite little gifts, and blushing when he looks into my eyes. It is true that when you try to plant flowers, they don't bloom. But when you plant willows by accident, they grow into a shade. I really didn't want to cause unnecessary trouble, So I quickly put on my wedding ring and went to work the next day, implicitly indicating the fact that I was married. In the busy and fulfilling days, we welcomed Grandpa Josu's 80th birthday. The birthday banquet was held in the main hall of the Zhou family's old house. Josu and I arrived at the banquet early, holding hands and pretending to be a loving newlywed couple, and greeting every guest who came to celebrate the birthday. After 3 rounds of drinks, Josu leaned close to my ear and whispered, "Are you okay?" Actually, it was fine, but I wanted to act like a spoiled child, so I mumbled, "I'm a little tired. Go take a rest." He took the glass of what looked like wine, but was actually water from my hand and said, "That's about it. I can handle it by myself." I looked at him and said, "A qualified wife should not be absent at this time." He suddenly smiled. "You were excellent tonight." Fortunately, he was sensible. I left with satisfaction and hid on the sofa in the lounge to rub my sore calves. 12-centimeter high heels are really not something that humans should wear. After a short rest and re-putting on my makeup, I walked out of the lounge on stilts and bumped into my childhood friend, Su Xiaoyu. I pretended not to see it and walked past him. He caught up with me in a few steps, with a flattering smile on his face. "What? You haven't seen me for a few years? Are you pretending not to see me?" I crossed my arms and looked at him. "Are we familiar with each other?" He laughed. "Does it count as being close if we grew up together? Then you won't even come to my wedding? What kind of good friend are you?" He explained, "I was overseas and something really happened at that time. Auntie, I'll apologize to you, okay? Just tell me what I should do to calm you down." Humph. I looked at him angrily. I am indeed a little angry, but it's not unforgivable. However, Su Xiaoyu is so sincere, so I naturally have to cooperate and be a little more angry. After a few words, the barrier was broken. He walked side by side with me to the banquet hall, and as we walked he said, "Josu married you, you must be very proud, right? What's the meaning? Isn't he happy after marrying his ideal woman?" He was stunned for a few seconds. "You don't know about this?" His face showed a horrified expression, as if he had said something he shouldn't have said. I understood instantly. "You mean Josu has always liked me?" I didn't say anything. He immediately covered his mouth. I stared at him, pretending to be fierce. After a few seconds of confrontation, he relaxed. "That's right. But you must not tell Josu that I said this." In his narration, I heard a completely new version of the story. It turns out that Josu has always had a crush on me, and even the marriage between our 2 families was facilitated by him. This dog man. I said that he didn't wear his clothes properly after taking a shower, and his abdominal muscles were faintly exposed. Who was he showing it to? It turns out he was showing it to me. He's been fishing for me. I was so stupid that I fell for his trick. Not only did I fall in love with him, I also wanted to seduce him. What a misstep. I took a deep breath to calm my excitement, and after my body and mind had calmed down, I returned to the banquet hall. There was a lively conversation in the hall. Josu was sitting next to the birthday boy, Grandpa Zhou, with his back to me, holding a glass of wine and greeting the guests who came to celebrate his birthday. The back figure is tall and straight, so handsome. I called out to him tenderly, "Husband." His figure trembled visibly, and even a little wine in the glass spilled. I held back my laughter and walked quickly forward, thinking bitterly, "Weren't you trying to hook me? Then it depends on who can catch the better fish." 5. In the past few months of marriage, I have never called Josu husband. Most of the time I call him by his name, and other times I simply omit the title. The first word husband seemed to have a big impact on Josu. It took him a long time to recover. He was still greeting guests, but his face was already stiff. He nodded and smiled instinctively and clinked glasses mechanically. From time to time, he would always turn his head to glance at me. I hid the sly smile on my cheek, tilted my head and winked at him. He looked away hastily, his panicked eyes looking as if he was going crazy. That's so fun, I thought. After a group of customers left, he pulled me to a corner and asked in a low voice, "What were you doing just now?" "Love," I said innocently. "Wouldn't Grandpa be very happy to see us 2 loving each other?" I looked up at him. "Or do you not like it?" He cleared his throat. "I'm just not ready." You'll get used to it. I skillfully took his arm, glanced at his expression, and tentatively called out, "Husband?" "Yeah," he answered me with a stern face. I raised my nose in annoyance. "Guy, don't think I didn't see that you are clearly secretly happy." After learning that Josue had always had a crush on me, I realized belatedly that his poker face was just his protective color. Hidden behind his poker face is the love he has hidden over and over again. I delivered coffee to his office as usual, and seeing him pretending to be stern, I couldn't help but tease him. "Honey, your coffee." The pen at his fingertips slipped, leaving a conspicuous mark on the paper. He looked at me with forbearance. "Don't call me that in the company." I replied obediently, urging him, "Try the coffee I made." He picked up the coffee and began to taste it. I was not in a hurry to leave. I leaned against the large desk, supported my chin with my hands, and looked at him intently. 1 second, 2 seconds, 5 seconds, he couldn't hold on any longer. What happened?" I laughed to myself. It was only 5 seconds. I shook my head slowly and asked as if it was new to me, "Where are your glasses? Why didn't I see you wearing them today?" "It pricked my eyelashes a little," he said, "but my eyes aren't tired now." I changed into a fangirl tone. "But you look so handsome with glasses." "Oh," he replied calmly, as if not taking it seriously, and took another sip of coffee. When I went in to deliver the documents later, he had already put on a pair of gold-rimmed glasses on his straight nose. He was lowering his head to sign a document. His rigor and elegance revealed a bit of animalistic and abstinent air. Damn it, even though I knew he was hooking me, I still got hooked. I silently prayed to myself that I should be pure and free from desire, handed the document to him, and said, "Su Xiaoyu is treating us to dinner tonight, so I won't be going home for dinner." He turned his head and looked at me, looking me up and down, and asked, "Do you want to go home and change your clothes before going?" The white shirt, gray one-piece skirt, and nude high heels didn't seem to be suitable for a gathering with friends. I nodded and he said, "Let's go home together." Xiao Zhang had something to do at home today, so I asked him to leave work early. Xiao Zhang is his driver. I hesitated. "But if you get in my car at the company, it will be very conspicuous." He was very easy to talk to. "I can walk to the intersection near the company and get on the bus." I still hesitate. He paused for 2 seconds, then suddenly winked at me and said in a soft voice, "My dear wife, please take care of me." Damn, she's using the beauty trap. I agreed helplessly. In the end, he drove me home and took me to a party, where Su Xiaoyu and others enthusiastically invited me to stay, and after many refusals, I had no choice but to have dinner with them. After watching the whole thing, I just want to say, haha man, your name is Movie King. 6. The gathering place was at Su Xiaoyu's hotel. The group picked a round table and started eating. Josue sat on my right. When he cast his eyes on my waist for the umpteenth time, I could no longer eat my meal, mainly because I wanted to laugh. When I wear clothes to meet up with friends, I usually go for comfort. Today I'm wearing something very simple, a white t-shirt and wide leg pants. The shirt was not actually short, but when picking up food, the elbows and shoulders always pulled the hem up a little. Whenever she lifts or lowers it, her waist is always exposed. Seeing that he was enjoying the show, I simply grabbed the hem of my dress and tied it into a flower on the left side. It made me look thinner and showed off my waist, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Soon, Josue came over and whispered, "Are you cold?" I suppressed my laughter and shook my head. "It's not cold." I thought to myself, you are allowed to deliberately show your abs in front of me, but I am not allowed to casually show a little waist? This is called giving someone a taste of their own medicine. He still said, "I brought a coat in the car. If you are cold, I will go get it for you." I looked at him with a smile, but before I could say anything, a teasing voice rang in my ears. "What are you talking about, young couple getting so close? Can you tell us?" I looked in the direction of the sound. The person who was speaking was Lin Chung, a playboy. He had pursued me before, but I didn't like him. He was the type who changed girlfriends more frequently than he changed clothes. I said to him in shame, "You have to listen to the couple's private conversation. Aren't you ashamed?" "It's not shameful. Who at this table doesn't want to listen to it? He smiled and said with a look of dismay, how come such a beautiful woman was only taken by you, Zhou Su? Come on, Mr. Zhou, tell me about your experience. I found his frivolous tone quite unbearable, and was about to lose my temper when Su Xiaoyu took the lead. Go, Lin Cheng. How can you compare with Zhou Su with your dog-like appearance? You should sort out the mess in your hands first. Su Xiaoyu probably drank a little too much. He usually spoke in a restrained manner, and would not be so harsh and blunt as this. Today he was completely merciless. I can't compete, but there must be something I can compete with on this table, right? Lin Cheng said lazily. Su Xiaoyu continued. No one at this table can compare to Zhou Su. He was probably in high spirits, and said in an excited voice, I have loved Xiaoxi for many years, that is real love. As for your trivial love, I am afraid people will laugh at me if I tell them about it. He was still talking, but there was only one thought in my mind. Exposed. I glanced at Zhou Su quietly, and found that he was also looking at me, with a somewhat panicked and nervous expression. I swallowed, and before I could think of what to say, Su Xiaoyu turned to me and asked, Xiaoxi, isn't that right? Ah, I didn't even hear that. But everyone at the table was looking at me, so I could only nod randomly. See what I said? Su Xiaoyu said in a proud tone. Zhou Su's hand suddenly grabbed my wrist. It was very hot, and he held it very tightly. Without saying a word, he pulled me out of the box. I followed him closely. I'm still a little confused. I think Su Xiaoyu didn't say anything he shouldn't have said, right? There was a lounge between the boxes. Zhou Su opened one of the doors, hugged me in, locked the door, and trapped me in his arms. He lowered his eyes to look at me. His eyes were filled with ink so thick that it could not be dissolved. This atmosphere made me feel a little scared for no reason, and I shrank my shoulders. He asked in a hoarse voice, You always knew that I like you? I said vaguely, I found out on Grandpa's birthday. He stared at me, his eyes becoming darker. Just as I was hesitating whether to say something to ease the tense atmosphere, he suddenly lifted my chin with his right hand, lowered his head, and sucked my lips. My eyes widened. After a few seconds, I cursed in my heart. You bastard, so fierce. 7. After the kiss, I didn't dare go back to the box. His mouth was red, his legs were weak, and even his clothes were messy. Zhou Su went back to the box and took my bag. I don't know how he explained it to the group of people. He took my hand, curled his lips, and said, It's done. I followed him home feeling dizzy all the way. The aunt at home had stewed papaya and white fungus, and asked me if I wanted a bowl. I nodded. She placed the papaya and white fungus on the dining table. I sat down and was about to eat when Zhou Su picked up the plate, took my hand, went upstairs and turned left into my room. Putting the papaya aside, he pushed me onto the single sofa, lowered his head, and tried to kiss me again. I couldn't handle it anymore, so I quickly pushed him away. Wait, it's better to make things clear first. He paused for a moment, nodded, pulled out a small stool and sat next to my legs. While eating tremella papaya, I asked, Were you the one who brought about our marriage? He nodded slowly. I smiled and said, When did you like me? He replied, When I was in high school. I wondered, We don't know each other, do we? He said, You just don't know me. I could sense some resentment in the voice. I was curious. Why didn't you chase her then? Zhou Su was very frank. At that time, it was considered marrying above my station. It suddenly occurred to me that the Rising Sun Group has only grown bigger and stronger in recent years. Their family has been on the rise, while ours has been on the decline. This marriage is to facilitate a big cooperation, and our family can be said to have benefited from theirs. I muttered, You can also talk about it after marriage. Prenuptial agreement. He smiled and said, What if I confess my love to you and you want to divorce me? Where can I go to seek justice? I'm not that barbaric. It just so happened that I had been unhappy with the prenuptial agreement for a long time, so I casually said, Let's redraft it. He nodded. Okay. He took out paper and pen, as if he had prepared them in advance. He paused several times before writing, and turned to look at me. I put down the papaya and tremella and shouted, Why are you looking at me? Write down your request. He said, I didn't ask for anything, just you. He's quite good at talking. Is this man so quick to understand? I glared at him, took the pen, and wrote on the paper. Don't lie to me, don't be mean to me, don't hide anything from me. After writing down 8 requests in a row, I looked at the paper full of my handwriting and said, just call it the wife rules. Josu nodded. It's not impossible. He took the agreement and asked me, do you want to sign here? I was a little stunned by his frank and submissive attitude. I spread my 5 fingers to cover the paper and asked him, do you want to think about it again? He signed quickly and looked at me. You don't know how long I have been waiting for this day. The dog man did know how to talk, and I smiled and kissed him on the face. After eating the papaya and revising the agreement, I thought about his cold treatment some time ago. I had nothing to do, so I simply started to settle the accounts. Article 1. Why do you dislike the coffee I made? I didn't put much sugar in it. I tasted it secretly, and it's not too sweet. He replied, everything you make is sweet. Okay, he passed. Article 2. Why am I only qualified to do odd jobs in the secretarial office? Can't I be your secretary? You are clearly looking down on me. It's unfair, he said. If you really become my secretary, I won't be able to work properly. You're the only thing on my mind. That's my problem. Okay, he passed. I was counting his crimes on my fingers, like working overtime and being a workaholic. But he suddenly came over me, pressed me down, and said in a hoarse voice, can I stay tonight? I snorted and kicked him away. No, go back to your bedroom and work overtime. 8. The first day of work after marriage and love. Josu insisted on going to the company with me, but I flatly refused. What a joke. I don't want to expose my relationship with him. If my colleagues find out, I will definitely not be included in the tea room gossip in the future. I was at work when the internal phone rang. I picked up the phone and asked him, Mr. Zhou, would you like some coffee? He replied, I missed you. Yanko was right. This man really made an internal phone call to flirt. I was really embarrassed in front of everyone, so I continued to ask him seriously. Which document is it? I'll bring it in for you, he said. I missed you so much that I signed the document with your name just now. I covered my mouth and lowered my voice and shouted, Josu. He laughed suddenly. His voice was mellow and pleasant, like fine wine flowing slowly in his heart. For some reason, I felt sweet and the corners of my mouth curled up. He said, there is a meeting at 10 o'clock. You come to take the minutes. Okay. I answered in a businesslike manner. He added, actually, I just wanted to see you. Meetings are so boring, it's better to see you. This man. I really wanted to scold him, but I was afraid that the sound would cause surprise in the office. So I held it back, picked up a document from the table, knocked on the door and entered Josu's office. He seemed to have been waiting for me, opening his arms and waiting for me to come into his arms. I slammed the document on his desk and said fiercely, be serious during work hours. He pulled me to sit on his lap and whispered in my ear, I've been thinking about doing something naughty for a long time. At this juncture, the time and place are not suitable, so I quickly changed the subject. Where is Special Assistant Lee? Why haven't I seen him recently? On a business trip, he said. I wondered. He seems to be on a business trip a lot lately. In the past, Special Assistants Lee and Zhao took turns on business trips. I suddenly realized. Could it be that you knew? He said confidently. Who told him to be interested in you? I hit his chest. I have solved it. I'm worried, he said. There's a project going on in another province, so I'll transfer him there to be the person in charge. This is probably a promotion, so I won't dwell on it. Josu suddenly got jealous and said, how dare you mention another man? I'm going to punish you. He put his hands around my waist, put his hands close to my ears, and kissed me gently. What punishment? You just want to kiss me. They rubbed each other's ears for a long time. When I walked out of his office, I felt quite embarrassed. I lowered my head, covered my forehead with documents, and quickly returned to my workstation like a guilty thief. Maybe because I did a good job in taking minutes of the meeting that day, Josu always called me to attend subsequent meetings. Monday morning meeting. After spending the entire weekend with Josu, I actually had trouble getting out of bed on Monday. I felt sleepy, tired, sore, and painful. At 10 o'clock in the morning, I yawned and entered the conference room with everyone else. Heads of various departments took turns speaking and discussing progress. I picked up a pen to take notes, but even though I tried hard to control myself, I couldn't stop the drowsiness that kept coming. The project manager's speech was so hypnotic. His voice was just like my high school history teacher. I loved to sleep in his class, and now as time goes by, I am so sleepy that I can't even open my eyes. My head suddenly dropped, and I came to myself. A chuckle sounded in my ear. I turned my head and saw Josu staring at me leisurely. I glared at him. What was he looking at? If it weren't for him, I wouldn't have to suffer this. He picked up a pen and wrote something on the paper, pushing it in front of me with his fingertips. I looked up and saw the word saliva written on the paper. No way? I hurriedly wiped the area around my mouth with my hand. But there was no saliva at all. It was clearly clean. Playing tricks on me. I continued to glare at him. He laughed again, and his smile was particularly bright and particularly annoying. Just as the project manager finished his speech, it was his turn to speak. Josu flicked the microphone with his index finger, cleared his throat, and said, "Well, this saliva." For a moment, everything was silent. I remembered how he teased me just now, without giving me any face at all, and burst out laughing. "Humph, it's finally your turn to be embarrassed." Josu looked at me with a serious face and said with interest, "Liang Shi, repeat what you just said 10 times. 9. No one wants to know what it feels like to repeat saliva 10 times in a row, and I don't want to review it. I just feel so embarrassed." That day, the company's forums and groups were filled with gossip about me. Why did Mr. Zhou suddenly bring up saliva in the meeting? Is saliva what I think it means? Can someone tell me what it feels like to repeat spitting 10 times in front of a bunch of big shots? Oh my god, my toes are working like crazy. Hot posts and topics rotate, but the content is always interesting. I have become completely famous in the company. I have never lost such a big person since I was a child. I secretly decided to ignore Josu. No matter how much he coaxed me, I would never talk to him. Unilaterally declare a cold war for one day. That night, Josu sneaked into my room. I turned my head away and concentrated on wiping my face without even looking at him. Unexpectedly, he knelt down at my feet and said, "Honey, I was wrong." I was a little shocked, but I still didn't plan to look at him. He handed over a piece of paper, which turned out to be the prenuptial agreement. He said, "I have added new clauses on my own. Do you think my wife is satisfied with it?" I took a moment to take a look. Don't embarrass your wife in front of her. Well, it's barely okay, but I still don't intend to forgive him. My eyes suddenly fell on the 4 big words "wife's rules" above the agreement. I fought back angrily saying, "Josu, copy the wife's rules 10 times. He raised his head. "You won't be angry after I finish copying it, right?" I didn't say anything, but I had actually calmed down. He suggested, "Why don't you take a video of me copying as punishment and post it on the company intranet, so that we can both be embarrassed?" I was not fooled. "You actually just want to make it public, right?" He said as a matter of course. "We have already obtained the marriage certificate. Why can't it be made public?" The problem with making this public is actually mine. I don't really want to. If I really made my relationship with Josu public, I wouldn't be as free as I am now in the company. The situation reversed. He coaxed me and I coaxed him. But Josu was easy to coax, and the problem could be solved with just 2 kisses. Another sticky night. In a blink of an eye, I have been working in the Rising Sun Group for more than 2 months. Not only have I met smart and lovely colleagues, but my relationship with Josu has also made great progress. That night, Josu and I were lying in bed arguing about who was more ruthless in fishing, when my cell phone suddenly rang. I said fiercely, "I'll settle the score with you later." The message was sent by a colleague in the company who I get along well with, and it came with a chat record. "Dong Shanshan. Cici, are these true?" "Dong Shanshan. I don't think you are that kind of person, but someone of them took the photo." "Dong Shanshan. Do you want to go to the company group to clarify?" I opened the chat history, and there were a few photos. Josu got on my car at the intersection, and I got on his car at the intersection. He kissed me and I kissed him, and the cars were coming and going, and it was a sweet scene. I kicked Josu. It's all your fault. You've been exposed. He came over, put his arm around my shoulders, and started looking at the chat history with me. The following words are somewhat unsightly. He said that I deliberately dressed so sexy every day in order to hook him, and that women like me pretended to be so pure and charming on the surface, but secretly liked to be the mistress of rich men. His expression became serious for a second, and he took out his phone. I'll send someone to check, and I'll handle this matter. Forget it, let's make it public, I said. The best solution to this matter is to let people know that he and I are a couple, and there is no improper relationship between men and women. He looked at me, pulled out the marriage certificate from under his pillow, and said, I'll make it public right now. I suspect he had really been looking forward to it for a long time. Otherwise, why would he even hide something like the marriage certificate under his pillow? He took a photo, and I thought he was going to post it on WeChat Moments, so I ignored it and replied to Dong Shanshan's message. Liangxi. Actually, I am your boss's wife. Dong Shanshan. Dong Shanshan. Do you want to say something else? I'm a little flustered now. I smiled, took Josu's marriage certificate, took a photo and sent it to her. Liangxi. Now do you believe it? Dong Shanshan. Oh my god. Dong Shanshan. The boss lady is actually next to me. After chatting for a while, she suddenly asked me, do you need me to send this photo to that group to clarify it? I replied, okay. The next moment she sent a message. No need, Mr. Zhou has already clarified it. Attached is a screenshot. I clicked it and was stunned for a moment. This man actually posted a photo of his marriage certificate on the company intranet. Above a pile of rigorous and formal plans, documents, announcements and notices, there is a marriage certificate that couldn't be more abrupt. Damn, this is so embarrassing. 10. For the first time in my life, I didn't want to go to work. But thinking of the lovely colleagues in the company, I still crawled out of bed with difficulty. Just treat it as your last day at work, and go to the company to say goodbye. Josu held me in his arms and comforted me the whole way, saying things like it was no big deal, and what's wrong with a legal couple showing their affection. It's really nothing big for a legal couple to show affection. But who would show off their affection on the company's intranet to make themselves look so great as a general manager? Josu's car drove into the company parking lot. He and I went into the president's elevator and went straight to the office door. I thought I could avoid the teasing of my colleagues in this way, but as soon as I got out of the elevator, I saw a bright red banner hanging on the door of the general manager's office. Warmly welcome the boss lady to visit the general manager's office to inspect our work. So tacky, so shocking and so funny. Josu on the side laughed out loud. He patted my shoulder, suppressed his laughter and said, Boss lady, go ahead and inspect the work. I suppressed my embarrassment and walked into the general manager's office step by step, which earned me enthusiastic cheers and applause from my colleagues. It was embarrassing, but not as embarrassing as I thought. I found my workstation and sat down slowly. After a whole morning, the co-workers around me were very friendly. They did not avoid the topic of the boss's wife, but they were not overly enthusiastic either. In short, it was not as terrible a scene as I had imagined. They are all pretty good. Except Josu. This guy must be really shameless. He actually made an internal call to other colleagues and said something like ask your boss's wife to come in and deliver a document. Is this something a human can say? My face turned red with anger, and I went straight in to settle the score with him and told him not to have lunch with me at noon. I had lunch in the company cafeteria with my colleagues. My originally calm heart was stirred again because of a small gift. After serving me the food, the cafeteria lady took out a beautiful paper bag from her hand, handed it to me, and said with a smile, It's from the boss lady. If you want to thank someone, thank the boss lady. I was numb and my voice was hollow. Thank you, Madam Boss. Dong Shanshan and several colleagues who knew the truth were standing next to him. They didn't give any face at all, and just burst out laughing. I glared at them, trying hard to suppress the urge to curl up my hands and feet, took the paper bag, and followed them to the dining table to eat. Everyone got a paper bag gift. It is filled with the latest electronic products, big-name skincare products, wedding candies and some small gadgets, suitable for men, women young and old. I had no idea about it. It seemed like Zhou Su had arranged it. During the meal, colleagues recognized me and came up to greet me with a big smile, always saying, "Thank you, boss lady." What a novel and special working experience. I went to the Human Resources office to resign in the afternoon. They gave me a green channel, and it was done in a few minutes. I had no position and was free from worry, so I walked straight to Zhou Su's office in high heels. Pushed the door and entered the room. Zhou Su was sitting behind a large desk. When he saw me, he laughed and asked, "What's wrong with you, the secretary? You didn't knock before entering the room." I said proudly, "I am the boss lady now." "Oh," he said. "What can I do for you, madam?" I smiled and walked closer to him. "See if you have any little lovers hidden here." He grabbed me and pulled me to sit on his lap. "Aren't you?" It was not serious, so I hit him. Looking at the documents on the table, I muttered again, "When can you get off work?" He was very smart. "Does the boss lady have any plans?" I slapped my wallet and said, "I got my salary. I'll treat you to a meal." He said quickly, "Then I have to work quickly. I can't let the boss lady down for this meal." Accompany Zhou Su to work until 6 o'clock in the afternoon. He finally finished his work, and I walked down to the company parking lot hand in hand with him. The car drove away from the rising sun group. Looking at the sky dyed with red clouds, I thought about this not-so-long journey to join the company. I have found a perfect husband. It's a good deal no matter how you look at it. Hey. End.